Hello friends, welcome to Health, Music and Fitness channel. In this episode, we'll be discussing about the electrical conducting system of the heart. As you know, there are 4 chambers of the heart: left atrium, the right atrium, left ventricle and the right ventricle. Left atrium drains into the left ventricle, right atrium drains into the right ventricle. And in the right atrium, there is a specialized area which is called the SA node. It is the pacemaker of the heart. So primarily SA node is the firing pacemaker of the heart. It controls the heart rate of the normal person in a normal setup. Then there are various pacemakers which can arise from time to time as and when needed. Supposing the SA stops firing, the other pacemakers can take over. The impulse first arises in the SA node, and at this point I would like to encourage you to draw the diagrams like this one, which I have just drawn for you people, and it really helps in memorizing, and somehow subconsciously you will pick up more and you will remember more and you will be able to recall more if you draw and write and learn. So in the right atrium there is this specialized area, and these are specialized cells which can fire automatically. So this is the SA node. It is also called the sinoatrial node, and first the impulse starts here, then it spreads into the right atrium, into the left atrium, and then it travels to a specialized area within the right atrium, and it is called the AV node, atrioventricular node. And till here the conduction is not very fast, and at the AV node it slows down. Then after that the conduction goes to bundle of his. This is a specialized area out here in the AV node where the conduction travels, and for both the ventricle, left ventricle and the right ventricle. From here 2 branches arise: left bundle branch, which supplies the left ventricle, and the right bundle branch, which supplies the right ventricle. And the right bundle branch is a single branch, and it just keeps on bifurcating into the Purkinje fibers which are present in the myocardium. So from SA node into the AV node, into the bundle of his, right bundle branch goes to the right ventricle, and in the right ventricle there are Purkinje fibers which are very fast conductive system fibers, and they will transmit the impulse very fast, very rapidly. But remember, in the myocardium the impulse travels a bit slowly. And coming back to the AV node, bundle of his, and then there is this left bundle branch. The left bundle branch divides into mainly 2 fascicles: left anterior fascicle, which lies superolaterally. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the heart and its conductive system, which I drew so that it makes sense. So it goes superolaterally and it is pointing down, okay, and it is basically providing the impulse to the left heart out here, where the lead 1 and AVL is pointing. I will come to that later on. Then there is this left posterior fascicle which lies inferomedially, and the importance of superolaterally and inferomedially I will come to after some time. So when we will be discussing about the blocks, the various bundle branch blocks, this anatomical location of the fascicles will come into play. The left atrium and the right atrium, they are very thin structures, and because they have to just pump blood into the ventricles, and the impulse travels across the surface of the atriums. This is a major difference. In the ventricles, the conduction is transmurally from within to outwards. That is one difference. Another thing you have to remember is after the conduction has come to the AV node and into the bundle of phase, the first thing to depolarize in the ventricles is the interventricular septum. And you should remember, interventricular septum is not a very thick or bulky structure, it is very thin. So when it depolarizes from left side to right side, like I have drawn these arrows, left to right. And we will discuss the importance of this direction in the next video. And then the impulse travels to the rest of the ventricles, and the conduction happens. When the atrium contracts, it forms a P wave on the ECG. This is the P wave. It is the first wave, positive wave. Then there is a QRS interval, and that is formed when the impulse reaches the ventricles and the ventricles contract. The P wave is formed by atrial depolarization. So when the atrium depolarizes, it contracts, that forms the P wave. When the ventricles depolarize, the ventricle contracts, and that forms the QRS complex. And then there is a positive T wave. T wave it denotes ventricular repolarization. So till now we know that there is a P wave, the QRS wave, QRS complex, and the T wave. And now you will be thinking, where does the repolarization of the atrium show on the ECG? Actually, the atrium is very small, it is very thin, and when the atrium is repolarizing, the QRS is forming. The ventricles are very bulky, very thick structure, and they overpower the electrical activity of the atrium on the ECG. Actually, you can the atrium is also repolarizing, but during that time the QRS is forming, so it just overtakes. Another thing to remember at this point is, from electrical point of view, there are only two chambers. There are four chambers: left atrium, right atrium, left ventricle, right ventricle. But from electrical point of view, there are two chambers, atrium and the ventricles, because the QRS is sum total of the electrical activity of both the left ventricle and the right ventricle. Similarly, P wave is a sum total of the electrical activity of the left atrium and the right atrium. And also you should know, the left ventricle is very bulky, the right ventricle is not so bulky, because the right ventricle just has to pump blood into the lungs. So not much effort is required for that, for a normal right ventricle. So it is not very bulky. And left ventricle, it has to pump the blood into the aorta, into the whole of the arterial tree, into the whole of the body. So it is bulky, and so the LV is thick, and more bulky the muscle, more the electrical activity recorded on the ECG from that area, from the left ventricle. In other words, the QRS is sort of mainly formed by the electrical activity of the left ventricle. It overrules or surpasses the electrical activity of the right ventricle. Not fully true, but true, because the left ventricle is very bulky, right ventricle is not so bulky, so it just overshadows the electrical activity of the right ventricle. But in the leads which overlook the right ventricle, they will record the right ventricular activity very nicely, like in V1, V2, and we will discuss about this in detail in the subsequent videos. So just to summarize, P wave is formed when atrium contracts, depolarizes, atrium contracts, then there is a QRS complex. When the ventricles depolarize, ventricles repolarize, the T wave is formed. Then there are different types of QRS complexes. The first now we'll just be talking about the QRS, not the P wave or the T wave, just the QRS. And in some complexes you will see there is a Q wave, that is the first negative deflection in the QRS complex, that is called the Q wave, and the first positive deflection is called the R wave. So the complex might be a QRS complex, or there might not be a Q wave and you will see a RS complex, like in this one, RS complex. This is a QR complex, this is a QRS complex. So there are different types of QRS complexes which you will be seeing in various ECGs in various conditions. And if the Q wave is very deep, it is denoted by a capital Q, and if it is a small q, a normal q, it is denoted by a small q. A deep q, like a pathological q of MI, it will be denoted by a capital Q. And the second positive wave after the R will be the R dash, okay, like in right bundle branch block, we will come to that later on. So there will be R, S, R dash pattern in V1, V2, and I think this is all that you need to know in this video, and we'll talk about the intervals after some time. Welcome back. So now we know there is a P wave, there is a QRS complex, there is a T wave. Now we come to the intervals and the segments. So PR interval is the distance, the duration from beginning of P wave to the beginning of the Q wave, and in the complex where there is no Q wave, just the R wave is the first wave of the QRS. So in that case, the PR interval will be from beginning of Q to the beginning of R wave. So that's about the PR interval. And then there is the PR segment, which is from the end of the P to the beginning of the QRS complexes. Then there is a QRS complex, and it is from the beginning of Q to the end of S wave, like out here, S wave. Then there is a QT interval. It is from the beginning of Q till the end of T wave. That's the QT interval. There are many drugs, many conditions where QT will be prolonged or shortened, and the PR interval can be prolonged or shortened. Then there is this ST segment. In a normal ECG, there is a clear cut demarcation where the S wave ends and where the T wave begins. This is the ST segment. This is very important, and sometimes in subtle MIs, if you just look at the ECG like that, you will not see any glaringly positive sign suggestive of MI in the ECG. But sometimes the first sign of MI occurring will be the distinction between the where ST is ending and where T is beginning is lost. So ST sort of merges into the proximal limb of the T wave out here. So you will find it very difficult to say, okay sir, out here ST is ending and here T is beginning. So that can be the first sign of MI, acute MI. Welcome back. So now we'll focus for some time on the P wave. In a normal lead where you see this type of P wave, the first half of the P is formed by the right ventricle. The latter half of the P is formed by the left ventricle, and the opposite of that you will see in lead V1. I will show you in lead V1. So here is the V1. So in V1, if you want to study the P wave, look in lead 2 where P wave is very prominent, very good size P wave you will get, and in lead V1 where P wave is biphasic. So the positive component out here, you will see it is the right atrium, the negative component is the left atrium. So in V1 you will see this type of P wave, biphasic P wave, it is normal. And if you see the V1 in some patient and you see a negative wave where P should be, that means it is left atrial enlargement. If you see just a positive wave in V1 where P should be, that means the right atrial activity is overriding the left atrial activity. So it is there is right atrial enlargement. Another thing to remember is when we talk about the atria, we never say hypertrophy. You always say enlargement, left atrial enlargement, right atrial enlargement, because there is hardly any muscle for the atrium to hypertrophy. In the ventricles, there can be ventricular dilatation, there can be ventricular hypertrophy. Next, we need to know about the PR interval, the QRS duration, and the QT interval. And these three intervals are very important because in different disease conditions, the intervals can prolong or shorten. So it is very important that you should know the normal range, and it is always a range. It is not a particular number that you can say above this it is prolonged or below this it is shortened. It is always a range. I always find it easy to remember by the number of squares, and for example, for PR interval, it should be more than 3 small squares and less than 5 small squares, which makes it 0.12 seconds, and it should be less than 1 big square, which is 0.20 seconds. It is from the beginning of the P wave till the beginning of the QRS complex. From the moment the atria contracts till the beginning of the ventricular contraction. So when the first wave of QRS complex is the Q wave, then sometimes we call it PQ interval, but sometimes it will be R wave will be the first wave of the QRS complex, so then we will call it PR interval, but in general most of us call it PR interval, irrespective of whether the first wave is Q or the R wave. When the PR interval is short, we have the pre-excitation syndromes, and we will discuss this in detail later on, but just to introduce this, we have WPW syndrome and LGL syndrome, Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome and Lown-Ganong-Levin syndrome, in which the faster than normal conduction exists elsewhere in from the atria to the ventricles. Just to remember LGL syndrome, there are James fibers which you can remember. So they are in the bundle of Face, LGL syndrome. And WPW syndrome, they usually have 3 abnormal pre-excitation pathways, about which in detail we will discuss later on. Then there is a term called full PR interval. This is when the PR interval is 0.20 seconds in duration, that is 5 small squares in duration. Then we call it full PR interval. Like in this ECG you are seeing, the total duration of the PR interval is 5 small squares. Then we come to the QRS duration. The total QRS duration should not exceed 3 small squares, that is 0.12 seconds, and if it is more than 3 small squares or 0.12 seconds, then it means the QRS is wide, then we call it wide QRS. There are different reasons, different causes why QRS can be wide. There could be a bundle branch block, left bundle branch block, or a right bundle branch block, or the impulse might have originated from the ventricles, so then it is a wide QRS complex. And sometimes there is a aberrant impulse from the supraventricular region which travels aberrantly into the ventricles. In that case also you can get a broad QRS. Then there are various other reasons like electrolyte abnormalities and some drugs, they can widen the QRS complex. If the QRS is less than 3 small squares, then it is a normal duration QRS. Then we have the QT interval. It is from the beginning of the Q wave to the end of the T wave, which means it includes the QRS complex, the ST segment and the T wave. And it is also important to remember that QT is inversely proportional to heart rate, which means when the heart rate is more, QT will be less, and when the QT is less, heart rate will be more. When QT is prolonged, there will be bradycardia. And so we need to correct the QT interval when the heart rate is above 100 or less than 60. For you to remember, if the heart rate is between 60 to 100, the QT interval should not be more than 2 big squares, 400 milliseconds. And if the heart rate is less than 60 or more than 100, then you have to use one of the formulas, and here we will be using Bézard's formula, which is to get the corrected QT. So we call it QTC. So QTC equals to QT divided by square root of the RR interval. So at a heart rate of 60 beats per minute, the RR interval is 1 second and the QTC is QT by 1, and that is the corrected QT. You can use the QTC calculators to calculate the QT interval. And there are various conditions again in which the QT interval can be prolonged or shortened. In hypocalcemia, in quinidine toxicity, in various other diseases conditions, the QT can be prolonged. Okay, so this is a small exercise which we will do, and I'll try to walk you through whatever we have learned till now. So whenever you are given a ECG to interpret, you look at the ECG, look at all the complexes. Before that, you look at the calibration, and in this ECG there is no calibration, so we can refuse to comment on this ECG. But anyway, we will continue and look at the different complexes: the P wave, the QRS wave, the T wave. At this point, just focus on the P, QRS and T, okay, and the interval between the two RR peaks. So we have to calculate the rate and the rhythm at this point. So I apologize for the noise. My Dobermans are getting very restless and I think they need to go, so Eric is taking them for a walk. And so we see the P wave, it is normal in shape. All the P waves, look at all the P waves, they look fairly similar in shape, which means they are coming from one point. So it's called sinus, normal sinus rhythm. And mind you, the P waves come from the atria, they don't come from the SA node. And if the P waves are arising in different areas in the atrium, the shape of these P waves will be different. That is how you differentiate atrial ectopic from a normal sinus rhythm, normal complex. And these complexes, the P waves, ectopics, which are coming from the atrium, they will be of funny shape, they will be pointed or angulated or straight or whatever, and some will look like normal sinus rhythms. So that is how you differentiate a normal sinus rhythm from a atrial rhythm. And you also should note the duration of the P wave and the duration of the QRS wave. And in this, the duration of the QRS complex is not more than 3 small squares, which means it is coming from above the ventricles. Anything that comes before the complex, before the electrical stimulus reaches the myocardium, it will give a narrow QRS unless there is a left bundle branch block or a right bundle branch block. The only other reason that you can get a broad QRS, a wide QRS, is when it is arising from the myocardium. So, in this ECG the QRS is of normal duration, it is less than 3 small squares, and there is a P wave. So, the P wave is there, QRS is of normal duration, which means it is coming from the SA node. Then how do you calculate the heart rate? You see the number of big squares between the two RR complexes. In this ECG there are 4. So, you can divide 300 by the number of big squares, or 1500 divided by number of small squares between the two RR intervals. So, that will give you the heart rate. And how have you reached to this conclusion? Because one small square is equal to 0.04 seconds. So, one big square will be equal to 0.2 seconds or 200 milliseconds, and there are 5 large squares per second, or there will be 300 large squares per minute. Similarly, for 1500 you can calculate the number of small squares which will cross in 60 seconds. So, that is how we came to this formula, 1500 divided by number of small squares between two RR intervals, or 300 divided by number of big squares between the two RR intervals. So, that will give you the heart rate. Then in atrial fibrillation is a disease condition in which the heart rate is irregular. So, in that case we cannot use this formula to calculate the heart rate, because the interval between the two RR waves, it will be different from one RR interval to the other RR interval to the other RR interval. So, in that case you will calculate in 5 big squares, you will calculate the number of R waves, and then that is 1 second, and because one big square is 0.2 seconds, 0.2 seconds into 5 is 1 second. So, in 5 big squares, number of R waves you multiply by 60. So, that is how you calculate the heart rate in atrial fibrillation. Till now we have discussed about calibration, the importance of calibration, and the different waves in the ECG. We have learnt about the ECG paper and the speed of the ECG paper, and we know how to calculate the heart rate and the rhythm, and in the next videos we will continue. Please subscribe to our channel Health, Music and Fitness, and spread the word around and like our videos. Please do comment. If you have any queries, please post them in the comment box and I'll try to answer them. Thank you. God bless.